Bonjour and welcome viewers and students to Let's Speak French, Parlons Français. These lessons on basic French are short and easy, and if you follow the program regularly, I can assure you that very soon you will be able to understand French quite easily. The previous class focused on French negation. In today's session, we are going to learn how to conjugate in the present tense verbs that belong to the second group. In the third chapter, I had told you that in the French language, there are 4 basic groups of verbs. We have already learned how verbs that belong to the first group are conjugated in the present tense. Today we'll proceed to the second group. This lesson has been divided into 3 sections. In the first section, I will explain to you how to conjugate second group verbs in the present tense. In the second section, we'll look at a few irregular verbs that resemble second group verbs. And in the third section, I'll provide an exercise to revise what we learned in today's class. The 4 groups of verbs are categorized by the endings of their infinitives. This table presents the 4 groups and their endings. All first group verbs end with ER. Second group verbs are categorized by their IR ending, and third group verbs end with RE. Each of these groups of verbs has its own rules of conjugation, and each verb within that group follows the same conjugation pattern. Only the 4th group is an exception. All the verbs classified under this group are irregular because they don't have a standard conjugation pattern. In this lesson, we will focus only on the second group verbs, that is, those verbs that have IR ending. I will explain the present tense conjugation with a few commonly used second group verbs. Let's begin with the verb finir, which means to finish. So, in order to construct the present tense of second group verbs, we first need to identify the stem of the verb. In case you have forgotten what the stem of a verb is, let me refresh your memory. In French, the infinitive form of every verb is composed of 2 elements: the stem of the verb and the ending. In the verb finir, F-I-N is the stem of the verb and IR is the ending. Once the stem has been identified, we can proceed with the conjugation. So we keep the stem as it is and simply remove the infinitive ending, which is IR, and replace it with the appropriate endings: IS, IS, IT, IT, ISSONS, ISSEZ, ISSENT, and ISSENT. And this is how the verb finir is conjugated in the present tense. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, elle finit, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent, elles finissent. I'll again read out the conjugation. Listen carefully to the pronunciation because there are silent letters which must not be pronounced. The letters that are pronounced have been highlighted. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, elle finit, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent, elles finissent. So, what do we notice here? We find that je finis, tu finis, il finit, and elle finit have the same pronunciation. The final letters are not pronounced. As for the endings ONS, EZ and ENT, We are all aware by now that these endings have a specific pronunciation. The letter S in ONS is silent. Nous finissons. EZ is pronounced as A. Vous finissez. And when the letter combination ENT is placed at the end of a verb, it is silent. The consonant that precedes the ENT ending is pronounced. Ils finissent, elles finissent. I'll now show you the conjugation of two more commonly used second group verbs. Accomplir means to accomplish. Since the verb begins with a vowel, the phenomenon of elision must be respected. So here's the conjugation. J'accomplis, tu accomplis, il accomplit, elle accomplit, nous accomplissons, vous accomplissez, ils accomplissent, elles accomplissent. The third verb that I'll include in this category is choisir. Choisir means to choose. When conjugating this verb, one must pay attention to the letter S. A single S is pronounced as Z, while double S is pronounced as S. So here's the conjugation. Je choisis, tu choisis, il choisit, elle choisit, nous choisissons, vous choisissez, ils choisissent, elles choisissent. So, with the help of these three verbs, finir, accomplir and choisir, I have illustrated how second group verbs are conjugated in the present tense. These endings are specific to second group verbs and are applicable to all verbs that belong to the second group. So if you remember these endings correctly, you should have no problem constructing the present tense of all IR ending verbs that belong to the second group. Before we proceed with the lesson, let me give you a list of second group verbs that have the same conjugation pattern as finir, accomplir and choisir. Applaudir means to clap, bâtir means to build, établir means to establish, grandir means to grow, obéir means to obey, réagir means to react, réfléchir means to think, remplir means to fill, réussir means to succeed, and saisir means to seize. In this section, we'll examine a couple of verbs that look like second group verbs but which do not belong to this category. Verbs like ouvrir, dormir and venir all end with IR, but none of these verbs belong to the second group. These verbs are known as irregular verbs since they do not follow the same pattern of conjugation as second group verbs. These irregular IR ending verbs lack the ISS letter combination that is characteristic of the present tense conjugation of second group verbs. Additionally, all three verbs ouvrir, dormir and venir follow three distinct conjugation patterns. Let's begin with ouvrir, which means to open. Firstly, we identify the stem by dropping the IR ending, like we would with a regular second group verb. Then we add the regular ER verb endings, that is E, ES, E, ONS, EZ and ENT to the stem of the verb. So although the verbs end with IR, the endings that we add to the stem are not the regular second group verb endings. Instead of S, S, T, ISS, ONS, ISS, EZ, ISSENT, we add the ending of first group verbs. Here's the complete conjugation. J'ouvre, tu ouvres, il ouvre, elle ouvre, nous ouvrons, vous ouvrez, ils ouvrent, elles ouvrent. As you can see, the endings that are highlighted are the endings that correspond to the first group verbs. This same rule applies to a number of irregular IR ending verbs, such as découvrir, which means to discover, offrir, which means to offer, and souffrir, which means to suffer. Next, let us consider the verb dormir, which means to sleep. The conjugation of this verb is slightly tricky, and the easiest way to understand it is by separating the singular forms, that is je, tu, il and elle, from the plural forms nous, vous, il and elle. So to conjugate the present tense of dormir for the je, tu, il and elle forms, we need to drop the IR ending as well as the final consonant before it, which is the letter M. So we remove MIR. What remains is DOR. Now we add the appropriate second group verb endings S, T and T. Here's the complete conjugation. Je dors, tu dors, il dort, elle dort. As you can see, the IR ending along with the previous consonant have been removed. Now I'll show you how to conjugate for the nous, vous, il and elle forms. We again drop the IR ending and we add the appropriate first group verb endings ONS, EZ, ENT. Here's the complete conjugation. Nous dormons, vous dormez, il dorme, elle dorme. As you can see, the stem of the verb has remained intact. So the whole conjugation of the verb dormir would be je dors, tu dors, il dort, elle dort, nous dormons, vous dormez, il dorme, elle dorme. Other verbs of this type include partir, which means to leave, sortir, which means to go out, and servir, which means to serve, among others. And finally, I will show you how the verb venir is conjugated in the present tense. Venir means to come. To conjugate this irregular IR ending verb, drop the E, N, I, R of the infinitive and replace it with IENS, IENS, IENT, IENT, ENONS, ENEZ and IENNENT, IENNENT. So here's the complete conjugation. Je viens, tu viens, il vient, elle vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils viennent, elles viennent. As you can see, only the first letter of the verb has remained intact. Some of the irregular IR ending verbs that follow this rule are tenir, which means to hold, and all the verbs that are formed with a prefix plus venir or tenir, such as devenir, which means to become, revenir, which means to come back, appartenir, which means to belong, and soutenir, which means to support. So these were a few irregular IR ending verbs. It's important to remember which IR ending verb belongs to which category because it is easy to confuse them. In this third section, we will revise what we learned in today's session on IR ending verbs. In the first two sections, I only showed you how to conjugate the verbs. But now, with the help of this exercise, we'll see how verbs are used within a sentence. We have here 6 sentences. We need to find the appropriate conjugated form of the verb. So in order to do that, we first make out which group does the IR ending verb belong to. Then we identify the subject. 1. Je sortir de la maison. Sortir is conjugated like the verb dormir. So we first remove the IR ending along with the previous consonant, the letter T. Then, since the subject is the first person singular, we add the letter S to S-O-R. So we have S-O-R-S. Je sors de la maison. This means in English, I leave the house. Number 2. Les enfants grandir vite. Grandir is conjugated like the verb finir. So we first remove the IR ending. Then, since the subject is third person plural, we add I-S-S-E-N-T to G-R-A-N-D, which is the stem of the verb. So we have G-R-A-N-D-I-S-S-E-N-T. Les enfants grandissent vite. Les enfants grandissent vite. The English translation would be, the children are growing up quickly. Number 3. Le garçon servir le dessert. Servir is conjugated like the verb dormir. So we first remove the IR ending along with the previous consonant, which is the letter V. Then, since the subject is a third person singular, we add the letter T to S-E-R. So we have S-E-R-T. Le garçon sert le dessert. The English translation would be, the waiter serves the dessert. Number 4. Tu soutenir la famille. Soutenir is conjugated like the verb tenir or venir. So we first remove the E-N-I-R ending. Then, since the subject is second person singular, we add I-E-N-S to S-O-U-T. So we have S-O-U-T-I-E-N-S. Tu soutiens la famille. Tu soutiens la famille. In English, the translation would be, you support the family. Number 5. Nous réussir l'examen. Réussir is conjugated like the verb finir. So we first remove the IR ending. Then, since the subject is first person plural, we add I-S-S-O-N-S to R-E-U-S-S, which is the stem of the verb. So we have R-E-U-S-S-I-S-S-O-N-S. Nous réussissons l'examen. In English, the sentence would be, we pass the exam. Number 6. Vous revenir à quelle heure? Revenir is conjugated like the verb venir or tenir. So we first remove the E-N-I-R ending. Then, since the subject is second person plural, we add E-N-E-Z to R-E-V. So we have R-E-V-E-N-E-Z. Vous revenez à quelle heure? So in English, the translation would be, at what time do you come back? With this, we come to the end of our second lesson of chapter 4. This lesson was divided into 3 sections. In the first section, we learned how to conjugate regular second group verbs in the present tense. In the second section, we examined a few irregular verbs that end with IR and learnt about their conjugation. And finally, in the third section, we revised today's lesson by doing an exercise on both regular and irregular IR ending verbs. I hope you enjoyed today's session. In the next class, we'll learn the present tense conjugation of third group verbs. I hope to see you in the next class. Thank you. À bientôt. See you soon.